Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about smart cities. Now, I don't know whether it's inevitable that they'll come along, and I think they're already somewhat here anyway, in maybe not a city form, but in various forms. For example, people being denied banking services and things like that, and these determinations being made ideologically rather than that someone has transgressed the law or been found guilty or whatever. Now, if someone's denied banking services, that makes their lives very difficult, and particularly now as banks seem inclined not only to deny the person banking services, but also to deny it to all their relatives and the people around them. So to really isolate them completely from sort of the things they need to do to exist day to day. So that sort of denial has a massive impact on somebody's life. It means they have to move to another country, or they have to go through an expensive legal process that may cost them many hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more. So their options, their avenues of appeal are limited, so that the people that would impose the ideology can do so arbitrarily, instantly, at any time, without forewarning and with impunity. Whereas if you want to fight it or oppose it or challenge it through the legal system, then you have to go through a long drawn-out process. You can't act arbitrarily. You can't just push a button and find that your bank accounts and everything have been returned to operation. You have to go through a long drawn-out process, and this makes it a ridiculously and absurdly unequal process, given that one side again can act arbitrarily and unilaterally, whereas the only avenues of appeal are long, drawn out and exhaustive. And we see this in many ways, where the state's able to impose penalties and is able to do so with that same high-handed, arbitrary behaviour. So just having a look at smart cities. I'm just letting my wife know there's a certain parrot that comes to be fed, and I think it knows every time I'm doing a video, because it appears at the precise moment that I start the video. I figure it's watching me. It could be a CIA smart city parrot, I'm thinking. But anyway, coming back to the smart city here. Just I've noticed some people talking about in China how the social credit system, which is an integrated part of the smart city thing, the social credit system imposes various penalties. So if somebody does something of which the party disapproves, and it could be an ideological transgression, it doesn't have to be a legal transgression. So there can be a decision made somewhere that, okay, this person has to be penalised. Well, how will they be penalised? What will be the extent of the penalty? Will they be advised in advance of the penalty? Will they receive some sort of method saying, well, we're going to impose this penalty in 30 days, but here's your avenue of appeal? These sorts of things. So, or is it just simply imposed out of the blue? Now, people in China report that they try to sort of board a train or an aircraft, for example, and find when they try to do it, or try to book the ticket, or in the case, say, a train ride, where they may just turn up at the station and buy a ticket, that they can't buy a ticket. Well, why not? Well, you don't have the social credit to do it. What? Well, what have I done? Hey, we don't know. You have to go and find out yourself. So, well, what ticket? Now, the tendency seems to be just to limit the best quality services. Or, for example, if you try and board a train that's the express train to say get you to work, for example, and what they'll do is you can't buy the ticket to the express train at the prime travel times in the morning, but you can buy the slow coach train ticket that leaves after 9 o'clock, say. So that you're not completely denied transport, You're just denied the transport you need when you need it. So this means that the person arrives late for work because they couldn't get the train that they would normally get, and everyone else can get. So they arrive late for work. That then triggers a second round of social credit demerit points because they're late for work. The boss gives them a hard time for being late. They explain the problem. The boss says, well, you shouldn't have got in social credit trouble in the first place. Maybe they have an argument with the boss, which is yet more social credit point deductions and so on. So this is, things can have a quite a big knock-on effect from one service is denied, which then automatically creates further transgressions, which cause more social credit problems. Now, what are the avenues of appeal? Given you only find out about the issue at the time you try and board the train, then you don't have time to respond or react. You don't have time to say, well, I've got a 30-day window here to show, to appeal this decision. The decision's arbitrary and appeal it. So that gives me enough time to deal with that issue before I suffer any direct penalty. But when it's sprung on you quickly like that, where you don't know, now, I remember when this Patriot Act came in, and after the 9/11 thing, and any unusual movement in your bank account or credit card, particularly the credit card, was viewed with, well, you have to prove you're not a terrorist. And but they could act instantly and arbitrarily. Now, I was going to do a lot of international traveling, so I put a bunch of money in the cash card, so because I didn't want to have issues with interest rates on the credit card, so I put a bunch of money in there, enough to cover the cost of the trip. So the trip was going to be, apart from the plane tickets, the thing was going to be like $20,000, for example. So I put $20,000 in the account, and thought that was all fine, but then trying to I only noticed it because I was at the airport and I had the card with me. I just wanted to get some food, like a cup of coffee and something. And the card was rejected, and I thought, well, it's impossible. It's got a shitload of money on it in credit. Like there's a couple of thousand in there already, so it was well over $20,000 in credit. But no reason was given. The card has just been put on temporary hold. No explanation, no nothing. Now, after lots of toing and froing, and given the time in the evening it was, you have to call centres overseas because the local call centre had closed for the day. So it wasn't like it was just an easy fix, or you could just pick up the phone and talk to someone and get it dealt with. You had to go through a long and lengthy procedure. Just calling around, trying to find out what was going on was the main thing. So fortunately, we were able to access a business lounge, and so we could do the calling around and do the following up and so on. But the thing was, the bank had acted arbitrarily. We think there might be a problem, and was able to immediately cancel essential services. I mean, they may not have exactly known that I was traveling, but given that on that same card there's been purchase of plane tickets and so on, it wouldn't have been hard to deduce. But I don't know if they were that, so I think there was a flag, probably computer generated, and it was bank cancel account. Now they claim that well, the following day we sent out a letter. Now what the fuck use is that? They send the letter out the following day, and then that takes 2 or 3 days to get. They say they did it. No such letter ever appeared, by the way. So I deny that happened. They say that a letter was saying, hey, we sent a letter. We've done our business. That's it. That's all we need to do. The rest is up to you. The burden of proof, all the rectification processes are now on you. We can act arbitrarily instantly. You have to sort it all out in your time, your expense, and so on. Now, having some sort of knowledge of contractual law and that sort of thing, was able to do some things, and the matter was actually sorted out in a few hours. But had it not been, all the payments on hotels and everything else would have been problematic to say the least. Given again, and the cost of cancelling plane tickets and rescheduling would have been diabolical. So, but this is an example of how one side can act arbitrarily, and they can just do it on the basis of that's it, and all the obligations in terms of sorting it out and unraveling it all pass back to you. Now, this is very much a favoured way of governments and bureaucracies doing business, and you can see it in, say, things like say child support in divorce law, or in not even formally married couples. Any woman can go into any social security office and say, look, I need payments for me and my kid and that sort of thing. Okay, well, we're not going to give you any money until you name the biological father. That's the obligation. You name the biological father, then and only then will we give you money. Well, I don't know who it is, says Shaniqua. Well, who do you think it might be? Well, it could be, Billy Bob down the back there, or down, Billy Bob in such and such a city or such and such a place. Billy Bob. Okay, well, there's 25 Billy Bobs in that city. One of them gets paid quite a good income. What was he doing? Well, I don't know. So they just pick the wealthiest Billy Bob and decide he's it. Then suddenly that Billy Bob has a backdated debt of $100,000, and the state can just arbitrarily impose that. Now the burden of proof is now just based on that bureaucratic ticking of a box by a low-paid clerk in some sort of fucking bureaucracy. The entire burden of proof now swings to Billy Bob to prove that he's not. Now, whereas they can act instantly and raid Billy Bob's bank account and pilfer it of money and all sorts of stuff like that, Billy Bob has got a 2 or 3 year waiting list before he can have the matter heard in court. So let's look at those things concentrated on steroids in a smart city, where due to the control and the knowledge the government has, whether it's surveillance cameras, facial recognition, digital currency, jobs are allocated rather than awarded by any form of merit, these sorts of things. They'll have near total control over you and knowing what you do and where you go. So they can determine any transgression and award punishment. Now, will these transgressions be listed? That if you you spit on the sidewalk or something. If you spit on the sidewalk, then you'll have to, that'll be 10 transgression points. Or if you speed in the car, or if you, don't pay your bills on time, something like that. That there's a series. Are they going to be clearly codified and that everyone is subject to the same law, or is it as it is today? There are various laws. If you're a Black Lives Matter Antifa protester and you burn down the police precinct building, that's okay. Hey, you've got a justified you're an oppressed minority fighting against Nazis, so you're allowed to do that. And who cares anyway? Insurance will cover it. But if you're a straight white person, an otherwise upstanding citizen, and you complain about drag queen story hour at your local library, or you complain about, or you protest about, I don't know, abortion or something like that, then the police will come, or you misgender somebody, the police will be knocking on your door, holding you fully accountable, and you can be dragged through a very punitive legal process. Now, these legal processes, I can, having done a lot of contract law work in courts and that sort of stuff, or on behalf of business and going to court, I've got some understanding of these matters, and I can represent myself. And in one case that could have cost me $100,000, I represented myself, and I used an expert lawyer and just some points of law so I could query them, and it cost me like $5,000 for that. But apart from a few filing fees, instead of $100,000, I probably spent $6,000 or $7,000. Took up a fair bit of my time, so I lost income doing that. But the point being is the the process could have been brutally punitive in terms of the stress and the money and $100,000 and all this sort of stuff. Whereas I could avoid that, but the average citizen can't. So the threat of the process alone can be punitive. Now I'll do another example. A woman glues herself to a car and in the centre of the city and causes massive traffic snarl, traffic jam, and she refuses to move when police tell her to move. She's breaking numerous laws and causing mass mayhem. And she not only the activist judge not only let her off, she didn't get a fucking fine. And doesn't have a recorded criminal history now. So now, like if somebody is late with their child support payment, though, then they can go to prison. So there's different standards applied to different people for different areas. So in the smart city, will there be those different standards? So there's different standards applied to different people for different areas. So in the smart city, will there be those different standards? Will only straight white males be held to the highest account and everyone else be given a lower, or will there be will it be universally applied? Because if it's universally applied, then we're going to find that like in the inner cities of Chicago and Baltimore today, where you get hundreds of shootouts between black rival gangs and the like, if they do apply it uniformly, then you're going to get a very high proportion of those that will be, will have demerit points assigned to them, if you will, are going to be, black. And so that means that they will be denied all sorts of essential services, which would, in theory, at least increase their criminality. Given that their other options are cut off. Will it create good behaviour? It's unlikely that it will create good behaviour. So it's more likely to create a criminal class, a violent criminal class, beyond anything we can even contemplate today. Then we get the issue, well, are we going to have smart cities just for certain types of people? So will you then separate people further by people that behave well will be able to live in this smart city. People that don't behave well will have to live in a different smart city that has no or very fewer services. We could say, well, that's already happening now. That there's, I was it might have been Chicago actually, and the taxi driver, it was in the evening. The taxi driver took a long way around. I said, why are you taking a long way around? He said, I'm not driving through that area, which was a lawless black area, which had lots of shootouts and murders and crime of all types, so that he wouldn't go through there. So do we already have that in some sense? But will there be separate smart cities or separate smart suburbs within cities that have walls in them where you can't move into this other area? There was a movie I saw years ago, Dystopian Future. It was Escape from New York, I think it was called, and it had some well-known actors of the day. That Kurt, what's his face, who's married to Goldie Hawn for a while. But the idea was that it was like a walled-off city of just sort of lawless gang mayhem. Will that be what the smart cities will look like? Do we want to separate the law-abiding from the non-law-abiding? That to some extent already happens. And if you look, as soon as a black person gets any money, what do they want to do? They want to get the fuck out of the black neighborhood as quickly as they can, move into a white neighborhood and be amidst all those Nazis, Hitler, because that's where the law-abiding, clean and tidy citizens are likely to be. So how will smart cities function given those ideological, uncomfortable realities that the globalists and the political left, bag handlers that they use to stick out front? How are they going to handle this? Because smart cities will very quickly, if good behaviour is going to be the rule, will create social division on a mass scale. Now in China, they can kind of do it because you've got a high degree of homogeneity, and they don't have millions of people from Africa, swarming around there. So can smart cities work in a non-homogeneous environment where there are multiple races? Will it serve as a melting pot and bring everyone to the same standard? If they do apply the laws of the demerit points uniformly, then we'll find that there's going to be a huge amount of there's going to be a certain section of the populace that is going to constantly be getting vast numbers of demerit points, and then will be denied all sorts of services. Or will in fact the smart city, like bit like the Soviet Union, the communist countries, will it be an ideological thing where ideological crimes will be considered the most criminal of the criminal, whereas the spitting on the sidewalk, urinating on the building, defecating in someone's front yard, that'll be, we don't really care about that. Burning down a building, who cares? Are they going to do that? In which case, the idea of demerit points will become so unpopular and so unworkable, and will have so little, the society will have so little faith in it that there'll be mass disobedience anyway. Because how can those guys get away with burning down a building, whereas I misgender somebody, you want to put me in prison or drag me through some lengthy legal process? Just on these legal processes, there needs to be avenues of appeal, and this is critical. If it is an immediate imposition without any avenues of appeal before the decision is made, then it's just a case of the bureaucracy wanting to crush you. That's all that means. Now, the process can be extremely difficult. For example, and the Nazis did this to the Jews. It's a denial of due legal process. Let's say you have to attend you're going through a legal process. Okay, the court says you have to attend a mediation or arbitration or what do you want to call it session. And that session is set for the down somewhere in the downtown office of some government department, courts maybe. So you go there, but then right at the last minute, maybe the day before, maybe even the morning of the day, you'll get a phone call, and some sort of operative, some low-level operative, will say, "We've moved. The only available office for the meeting is 50 miles away, and it's not on a public transport line. So you're going to have to drive. It's 50 miles away, and it's compulsory to attend. If you don't attend, then that will count against you when the judge next hears the case." So he said, "Well, hey, it's you're calling me an hour before the meeting," and then the phone just hangs up. So they've now recorded on their little bureaucratic sort of form that you've been contacted, you've been advised. The fact you only got an hour's notice and they've moved it 50 miles away, that is now your problem, not theirs. It's your problem to solve, your problem to get around. So you have to, jump in your 50 miles away. That is now your problem, not theirs. It's your problem to solve, your problem to get around. So you have to, jump in your car and drive like hell to get there in time. Then you get there, and this is very Kafkaesque in many ways. You get there, and then they say, "Oh no, we had to start early, and you weren't here, so we started without you." You say, "Well, I've arrived on time. This is the oh well, things change. Deal with it. You've now transgressed. You weren't here. We would have had the meeting, but you weren't here, so the judge will be advised." So next time you go to in front of the judge, "Well, Billy Bob, that compulsory session you were supposed to attend, I have listed here that you didn't turn up, and that's going to count against you, and you're in big trouble now, and I don't believe anything you say." And clearly that's been a manufactured event to intimidate you and to fuck you up. But these sort of things happen. This is where the state, this is denial of due legal process, of course, this is where the state deliberately sets up these things. And then you explain to the judge, say, "Well, look, it was meant to be in the city, and then it was switched to 50 miles away, but I only got an hour's notice." Is that so? The judge then turns around to the operative. "Is that so?" And the operative, who'll be like a 21-year-old radical leftist gender studies hack. Oh no, we sent Billy Bob the letter 2 weeks ago saying that it was being changed. Um, so you say to the judge, well, no, that's I got no letter, and I got a call an hour beforehand. Do you have any proof of that, Billy Bob? Can you give document proof that you got an hour? Well, if I knew I needed to bring the proof, I would have brought it. If you haven't got the proof, I don't accept that. I accept that Billy Bob, that you send a letter, I accept you ignore it, and I accept that you refuse to attend. And therefore you're a motherfucker. So now these are all processes of intimidation, and in the smart cities, without where the state gives itself the right to act instantly, immediately, and arbitrarily, and must itself meet a very, very low burden of proof and no accountability, then it can do and impose what it wants for all sorts of ideological reasons, which I suspect that's the direction they want to take. I'm convinced it is the direction they want to take the smart cities. But we all need to sort of really come together on this to say, okay, if you want to impose a penalty, you have the clear and absolute unambiguous notice. You have to confirm that the person's received that, and you have to have an immediate instant avenue of appeal that's objective and impartial. And if you're not going to do those things, then the whole smart city thing is built on shifting sand, and it's not going to go anywhere. And in the end, the people will revolt and they'll tear you to pieces. You've been with Tassus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.